All right, today we are diving into one of the most epic stories ever told. It's a tale of courage, of conspiracy, and a conviction that just refuses to break. We're talking, of course, about Daniel in the lion's den. Thrown to lions, but they couldn't touch him. I mean, just think about that for a second. How is that even possible? This one sentence just grabs you, right? It sets the stage for this incredible story about facing impossible odds. So let's get into it and figure out how a man could stare down some of the most fearsome predators on the planet and walk away without a single scratch. But here's the thing, to really get the miracle, you first have to get the man. This didn't just happen out of the blue. Oh no, this was a carefully planned test of conviction, and it was aimed at one specific person, a man who was famous for his integrity. So who exactly was Daniel? Well, he wasn't just some guy. He was a man of, just unshakable faith. He was known everywhere for his wisdom and his integrity. And this is key, the king absolutely loved him, really favored him. But when you have that kind of power, well, it comes with a dangerous side effect, envy. And you better believe his rivals were watching his every move, just waiting for him to slip up. And this is where the trap is laid. See, Daniel's enemies, they couldn't find a single thing wrong with his work. So they come up with this wicked plan to use his greatest strength against him. They cook up this unbreakable law, a royal decree, that's designed to do one thing and one thing only, to make Daniel's own faith his downfall. And the law was so specific, so absolute. For 30 days, nobody could pray to any god or any person except for the king. And the punishment? You guessed it, you get thrown to the lions. Now let's be real, this had nothing to do with loyalty to the king. It was a political hit job, pure and simple, with only one target in mind. So Daniel has a choice to make, right? He can either compromise everything he believes in or face, certain death. And this is how it all goes down. First, Daniel, being Daniel, just continues his daily prayers. He's not gonna bend. Then, just like they planned, his rivals catch him in the act, and boom, they run straight to the king. And here's the final brutal step in their trap. The king is heartbroken, totally distraught, but the law is the law. It's unbreakable. He can't do a thing to save his friend. And that leads us right to the heart of the story, the moment of truth. Daniel is condemned. As night falls, he's taken to the lion's den. This is it. Everything he believes is about to be put to the ultimate test. So this really brings us to the central question of the whole story, doesn't it? What happens when unwavering faith comes face to face with inescapable fear? It's such a powerful idea. You've got this unshakable belief system on one side, and on the other, a very real, very physical, very deadly threat. And so he's cast into the den. And at first, there's just darkness. Then what you'd expect to be roars and chaos is just silence. An overwhelming, heavy silence. Nothing. And in all that darkness and all that silence, there's only one thing left. The very thing that got him there in the first place. Faith. Okay, so after what must have felt like the longest night in history, the sun starts to rise. And with the dawn comes the moment of deliverance, when the miracle is finally revealed. The king, you can just imagine him, he's been up all night, fasting, worrying himself sick. The second there's light, he rushes to the den. Can you hear the desperation in his voice as he calls out Daniel's name, just praying for a miracle but fearing the absolute worst?
And what he hears back is just impossible. The amount of harm that came to Daniel, a big fat zero, nothing. He is completely untouched. The lions are just chillin', and Daniel is standing there alive and perfectly fine.
So how did it happen? Daniel himself gives the answer. He calls out from the den and says, "My God sent his angel," and he shut the lions' mouths. He takes zero credit. He gives it all up to divine protection. Daniel's survival and his explanation for it really brings us to the core message of this whole story. It's a powerful idea that has echoed through the ages. It's all about a faith that genuinely protects. So let's be clear. The kind of faith we're talking about here isn't just, a casual belief. It's defined in this story as absolute, total trust in a protective power, especially when you're staring down an impossible situation. It's about holding on to that trust when every ounce of logic is screaming at you to let go. And that is the key takeaway. If you remember one thing, remember this. The timeless message of Daniel's story is that a deep, unwavering faith can be like a shield, protecting you in those moments that feel completely and utterly impossible. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. Daniel, he faced a literal den of lions. So this ancient story kind of challenges us to ask ourselves something that's just as relevant today. What are the lions in your life? What impossible situations are out there demanding your faith right now?